In the quiet town of Oak Ridge, where the rumble of motorcycles often echoed through the streets like distant thunder, a single cry shattered the night. Did you know that sometimes the toughest exteriors hide the kindest hearts, turning strangers into saviors in the blink of an eye? It all began on a chilly autumn evening. 8-year-old Lily Thompson lived in a small, weathered house on the edge of town with her mother, Sarah, and her stepfather, Mark. Sarah had once been a vibrant woman, full of laughter and dreams, working as a waitress at the local diner to make ends meet. But Mark's arrival 2 years ago changed everything. He was a man plagued by his own demons, unemployment, anger, and a bottle that never stayed empty for long. At first, the arguments were just words, sharp and cutting, but they escalated into something darker. Sarah bore the bruises silently, shielding Lily from the worst of it, whispering promises that things would get better. Lily, with her wide blue eyes and freckled cheeks, adored her mother and dreamed of a life where they could escape to the beach, building sandcastles without fear. That fateful night, the air in the house grew thick with tension. Mark had lost yet another job interview, and his frustration boiled over. Shouts turned to shoves, and soon Sarah was cowering in the kitchen, her pleas falling on deaf ears. Lily, hidden in her room clutching her teddy bear, heard the crash of a chair and her mother's muffled cry. Her heart pounded like a drum, she couldn't just hide anymore. Slipping out the back door in her pajamas, bare feet slapping against the cold pavement, she ran toward the only light she saw, the neon sign of Rusty's Bar, a hangout for the local biker club known as the Iron Wolves. They were a rough crowd, leather-clad giants with tattoos and beards, revving engines that made the ground shake. Townsfolk whispered about them, calling them troublemakers, but Lily didn't care. She burst through the door, tears streaming down her face, gasping, "They're beating my mama. Please, help." The bar fell silent. Pool cues clattered to the floor, and all eyes turned to the tiny girl trembling in the doorway. Big Joe, the club's leader, a towering man with a scar across his cheek and a heart softened by his own lost childhood, knelt down to her level. "Hey, kiddo, slow down. Who's hurting your mom?" Lily pointed toward her house, words tumbling out in sobs. The bikers exchanged glances. This wasn't their usual Friday night. But something stirred in them, a protective instinct, born from their own histories of hardship. They weren't angels, but they knew right from wrong. Joe nodded to his crew. "Mount up, boys. Let's go see about this." As the engines roared to life, Lily clung to Joe's jacket, riding on the back of his Harley, the wind whipping her hair. The group of a dozen bikers thundered down the street, their headlights cutting through the darkness like beacons. They pulled up to the Thompson house, where the front door hung ajar, shouts still echoing inside. Mark froze when he saw the wall of leather and chrome outside. Sarah, bruised and terrified, peeked from the kitchen, her eyes widening in disbelief. The bikers didn't charge in like vigilantes from a movie. Instead, Joe stepped forward calmly, his voice steady but firm. "We heard there's trouble here. The little one came to us for help." Mark blustered, trying to play it off, but the sight of the imposing group made him back down. The bikers formed a human shield around Sarah and Lily, calling the police themselves to ensure things were handled properly. As sirens approached, Joe whispered to Lily, "You're brave, kid. Braver than most grown-ups." The police arrived swiftly, taking Mark into custody for domestic assault. Sarah, shaking but relieved, hugged Lily tightly as the bikers stood watch. It turned out the Iron Wolves had a code. They looked out for the vulnerable, especially kids. Many of them had grown up in broken homes, witnessing or enduring abuse, and they'd formed their club not just for rides, but for community. That night, they stayed until dawn, helping Sarah pack essentials and driving her and Lily to a women's shelter in the next town. Joe even slipped Sarah a card for a lawyer friend who specialized in family cases, pro bono. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire through Oak Ridge. The bikers, once feared, became local heroes. Lily started calling Joe Uncle Joe, and the club visited the shelter regularly, bringing toys for the kids and groceries for the families. Sarah filed for divorce, got a restraining order, and with the support network, found a better job at a bakery. But the real change came from within. Lily, once shy and withdrawn, began to smile again, drawing pictures of motorcycles with hearts around them. The climax hit when Mark, out on bail, tried to intimidate Sarah one last time, showing up at the shelter's parking lot. Unbeknownst to him, the bikers had anticipated this. They arrived in force, engines growling like guardians. Mark took one look at the circle of bikes and turned tail, never to return. The twist? Joe revealed to Sarah that he'd been in her shoes as a boy, his own father had been violent, and a kind stranger had stepped in, changing his life. "We break the cycle," he said. "That's what family does, blood or not." As months passed, Sarah and Lily rebuilt their lives in a cozy apartment. Lily excelled in school, inspired by the bikers' tales of resilience. The moral shone clear: true strength isn't in muscles or machines, but in compassion and courage. Judging by appearances misses the heroes among us, and one act of bravery, like a child's cry or a stranger's help, can spark a chain of kindness that saves lives. It reminds us all to look out for one another, because in the end, we're all riding the same road. If this story touched your heart, give it a like, drop a comment sharing your thoughts on unexpected heroes, and subscribe for more uplifting tales that prove goodness prevails.